Yeah, Bogi,
unfortunately, as we're about to start this discussion, we are experiencing some serious change, I think, in the northern front that we're currently analyzing. So this should be a factual and legal update, but the problem is that things are up. The things are changing so quickly, so we may not be even able to capture exactly what is happening at the moment. So yeah.
Let's just, if I could just jump in and say, first of all, thank you, everybody. We are about to begin. Alyssa will lead us. I particularly want to thank Dr. Roy Schondorf. He was originally supposed to speak to us about the reasonable test back in the good old days of a week ago. And we appreciate his pivoting to this topic. Daniel Reisner, who we met with when we were in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, who is also joining us. So that's not an introduction. I leave that to Alyssa, but I wanted to get that thanks out there.
Thank you.
Yes, all I can really repeat is thank you to Dr. Schondorf and Daniel on last minute notice, helping us put this together and pivoting. And I'm going to let Rob Garson, our president, further introduce you and take over. But we really want to hear, obviously, what you have to say. We send our deepest sympathies and prayers, of course. And we will open up for questions near the end of the discussion, so people can feel free to write in the chat directly to the hosts, and we'll try to get as many of your questions as possible. So Rob, if you could take over, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, thank you everybody for coming. Roy Schondorf, I was actually speaking to Simon Fallick yesterday. He wishes you his kindest and warmest regards. You've had you've said you've had your slight disagreements in the past, but but we are all together as one here. Danny, thank you very much as well for being on board. Israel knows that everybody, Jews around the world, non-Jews around the world, are standing in support. We're also facing the other PR battles on the other side. I got an update from the State Department 10 minutes ago talking about there's now a movement, and large significant movement on the Northern Front, which of course you'll bring us up on. It's just safe to say, look, my parents are in Israel at the moment. They've declined to leave. We've all got people, family, friends, and whatever we can do from the outside, we will do to help as much as we can, be it, taking over essential jobs, even for lawyers. If I spoke to Mayor Linzen yesterday, said any law firms in Israel that require work done on a pro bono level, we will organize it from the United States. And anything else we can do, money, etc., that doesn't gum up the system. That being said, we need information, and you're here to provide information. So I'm not going to have you guys fighting it out. Roy, or Doctor, whatever you want me to call you at this point.
Roy, absolutely.
Lead us off. What's the current state of affairs that that you can tell us?
Well, first of all, thank you for gathering this discussion. I think it is very important, and it is an opportunity to share information and maybe ideas with many of you around the world, and I'm certainly grateful for the opportunity. I should say at the outset, the situation is very volatile, and we had sirens going on here throughout the day, and so it may be that as we speak, if there is a siren, especially in light of what is happening now in the north, I may need to leave to the protected area, and so no need to worry. We have that covered, but we may need just to take a short break then, and either Daniel can continue we're not at the same area now. So if he's not affected, or you can also continue the conversation for the very few minutes until I'm able to come back. Just stay calm. No need to worry. Currently, just before we started, we see reports of a coordinated drone attack in the north of Israel. This is a capability that we haven't seen before used by the Hezbollah. We've seen it used by Iran when Iran was attacking the Saudi oil facilities. And there are a number of assessments as to what the target of this attack was. It's usually it is an attack that is designed to go to us, with a number of drones that have explosives on them to attack a strategic target. We know that these drones traveled throughout the country, heading towards the south, and so it's still we still can't, at least on TV, they were not able to confirm what exactly the target was. I can speculate what they might have been trying to do. This is, of course, a very serious and dangerous escalation in the north. In parallel, there have been some reports just before I started of a small number of rockets that were fired, and also maybe some infiltration of individuals. I don't know if Daniel, if you are following as I speak, if you're following the developments online, but that was the last I've heard, and I have asked some colleagues to send me updates on WhatsApp as we speak. So if I learn something new, I will let you know. This is of course this is of course a very serious escalation of the situation. We are already, and I think that may be the first important point. We are here in Israel. We're in a situation of war. It's nothing like anything we have experienced in the last 50 years, I would say, right? And this is something important. People, around the world are used to, a conflict in Gaza, a round of hostilities. This is not it is not the same situation at all. And in this respect, also the understanding of what we are experiencing and what also we need to do, or we will need to do, needs to be such that is appropriate to this to these challenges. So if we look at the southern front, right, we are facing repeated attempts by Hamas forces that unfortunately were successful on Saturday morning to infiltrate Israel, both through the ground, the air, and the sea. And this is still continuing as we speak. So it hasn't stopped. Unfortunately, on Saturday morning they were successful. We still have some of these terrorists that infiltrated on Saturday morning still within the Israeli territory. They're much fewer than the number that was here before, but IDF forces are still engaged in combat operations, going house to house, trying to search houses and other spaces for these terrorists that are still here. We are continuously under rocket fire from Gaza. It goes on continuously from Saturday morning. Thousands of rockets that have been and continue to be shot from Gaza. And in parallel, we need to we conduct some of our offensive operations already in Gaza at this point from the air. These are operations on all of them on a large scale. all of this is happening at the southern front. In the northern front of Israel, right, where we deploy the forces designed to anticipate any potential deterioration. We had, some, we had a number of incidents, in the last few days. Every day, another incident. One day, mortar or a rocket shot. One day, an infiltration that unfortunately cost us in the life of 3 Israeli soldiers, including a colonel or a lieutenant colonel, and an attempt to shoot a missile, an anti-tank missile at an Israeli vehicle, and we responded, but in a manner that is designed to contain the situation on the northern front. Obviously, as I mentioned, this is the recent development there in the north may change the reality in a way that will have strategic effects. You all heard President Biden's remarks yesterday, where he told Hezbollah and Iran, don't. And I think, in my experience, at least, one should listen to the U.S. president when the U.S. president speaks so clearly. So, in response, right, when I say we're at a state of war, it's also reflected in the way that the people here, the population, experiences the situation, right? So, everyone feels that, there is something, that something major is happening. First of all, we recruited, I think, almost 300,000 reserve soldiers. This is an unprecedented number of reserve soldiers that have been recruited. It presents huge challenges also from a logistical perspective, but we need all of these soldiers both to stabilize the southern front and to prepare for operations in the southern front, and also to hold the front on the north. But that actually means, right, that the streets are empty. Almost, a large number of young men are actually at the front lines. People bought food, and in large numbers of the supermarkets were empty, and people take food to the prepare for the possibility that things will deteriorate further. Everyone is closed, the streets are empty, and of course the children don't go to schools, right? So the overall situation, the overall atmosphere here in Israel is really is very similar to what one would expect during a war, and there is a strong sense within society that this is a serious threat to our national security, and also a very strong sense that what has happened cannot happen again, right? And we cannot just go back to the situation as it was on October 6th. We need to do something that changes the basic equation or the basic reality in not necessarily only in Gaza, in the region, in a way that will ensure that the things that happened on October 7 cannot repeat again. And this is even if it requires very strong and decisive measures on our part. You can think of it as, as a feeling maybe in the United States after the September 11 attacks, right? That, the U.S. also felt that, it has the responsibility to take all necessary measures to make sure that something of that nature cannot happen again in the United States. I think the other thing that is very clear is that, the Hamas war, the attack was it was clearly, and no one can doubt that it was intended to attack the civilian population in the most terrible and horrific way that one can imagine. So, you know, the attack on Simchat Torah on Saturday morning, families, people are in their bed. Hamas just went into Israeli towns and villages and simply slaughtered everyone that were there. So far, our understanding is that the number of casualties is certainly beyond 1,000. Some of casualties of murdered individuals, right, is above 1,000. Some cite a number already of 1,200, and these include women, children, elderly, babies, just unimaginable. Entire families. Sometimes you see, you know, the parents were killed and the babies, you find them next to their bodies of their dead parents. Just things that are very difficult to watch, even for someone with the kind of training and experience maybe that I have. And you know, I had the unpleasant experience of seeing some of these things in the context of other conflicts. I mean, this is the largest attack in history, other than the largest terrorist attack in history, other than the September 11 attack, in terms of the number of people killed, and the largest number of Jews murdered since the Holocaust in a single day. But it's not just the number. I mean, maybe I should say a word about the numbers. I mean, if you take Kibbutz Be'eri, right? Kibbutz Be'eri is one of the really most beautiful kibbutzim next to adjacent to the Gaza boundary, right? A third of the people living in the kibbutz were murdered, right? A third of the people, the kibbutz, it's like a family. Think about, you know, a third of the family is killed. It's just unimaginable. And even the people that survived, I mean, the stories that you hear from people that survived, on the experiences, on what they had to experience, you know, that's many of these people, it's just very difficult to see how one can recover from such atrocities. You know, if you go to the Peace Festival that was held adjacent to Kibbutz Re'im, 260 bodies were recovered there. Some of them killed, you know, in ways similar to what we've seen in the Holocaust, like in halls, you know, like in Babi Yar, that they were all brought to kind of a place, you know, in the ground, and you know, concentrated there, and just, you know, and then all of them being shot. The level of the cruelness that is reflected is really, you know, reminds only you know, what we've seen with some of the ISIS practices. We found individuals, soldiers and civilians that have been beheaded, including babies. At least these are the reports. Young babies, elderly, entire families. It's really, it's beyond imagination. I don't know how much, you know, we here in Israel on television, we don't show the graphic pictures, but I know that actually in the international media, we gave the international media the permission to actually film some of those. I don't know how much of it was actually broadcasted in the United States. These are just things that are beyond imagination, and really, you know, it's even for us that, you know, we have known for years how cruel Hamas can be and what is the nature of this terrorist organization. I mean, these are things that you cannot expect, you know, any minimal sense or spark of humanity in people. So that's really a travesty, and the situation is still not done. So, you know, they've taken over 20 towns and villages, and there are still even today there are still some terrorists there that were able to hide there, and we're, you know, the IDF forces are fighting to deal to kill them and bring back the safety to the region. All civilians have been evacuated, you know, yesterday or the day before yesterday from the towns and villages. So now these are all like ghost towns or ghost villages with IDF soldiers there, and just hundreds of bodies on the ground, and bodies and burned houses and burned cars, and it's just, you know, it looks as bad as something as bad as one could imagine. And I don't think there is any war crime or crime against humanity in the Rome Statute that these terrorists have not committed. We have testimonies from survivors that the terrorists used IDF uniform. We have testimony that they actually used ambulances to get access into some of the towns and villages. We have videotapes of a drone attacking a military ambulance, killing both paramedics. We have almost all of them were wearing civilian clothes. Also, we have citizens, you know, just Gazans that are not part of the terrorist, the formal terrorist group. Just, you know, just Gazan civilians that, you know, they're going and committing atrocities, and we have horrible evidence and testimony of mutilating bodies and doing horrible things to bodies. These are just unimaginable things. As I said, I don't think there is a war crime in the book of war crimes, in the Rome Statute, that these terrorists have not committed. And I think on that, with that in mind, one needs to understand also the need for a very decisive response by Israel. We cannot. What happened shouldn't have happened, and you know, it's just unthinkable that something like that could have happened and actually happened. But we cannot afford to ourselves that, you know, to continue living with the risk that something like that could repeat. You know, these are people that live very close to our territory, and you know, as President Biden said, I mean, this is that type of evil that you need to, you know, there is no justification. Which, you know, I've seen some debates in the United States that are really, you know, there are actually people that try to somehow justify these things. I think it speaks mostly about, you know, about these people, no matter what one thinks about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I mean, it just, you know, how can one, you know, there are things that are just clearly evil, and it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter politics. Who can justify the killing?
So this is actually part of Doctor, this is actually part of the debate that we're engaged in at the moment on the outside, where you're having to actually argue with people who seem to believe that rape is a justifiable tool of war, that beheading babies is somehow excusable. We've got the Students for Justice in Palestine putting out days of celebration. They're calling this resistance. So that's kind of part of what on the diaspora that we're trying to.
I think, Rob, this is an opportunity to show the face of these people. I think most people of with decency would understand that this is just that this is terrible. I was quite disappointed to see the very weak, almost parve, we say in Hebrew, reaction of the NYU dean of the law school to something that came from someone that purports to represent some student body. I think that concerns me much more than the fact that there is this student, and I think that it speaks for itself that who that person is. But the fact that the law school itself could not say, look, whatever you think about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we're completely standing with Israel and with the victims in this case. I felt that it was, and for me as an NYU alumni, it was really shocking in a way, and that actually concerns me, that in the name of some sort of liberalism, that every view, there is freedom of speech, everyone can hold their own opinion, that this gets some legitimacy or legitimization by institutional actors in the United States. But otherwise, they are doing more harm to themselves than good by adopting it, and we should collect these and refer back to them in the future when these people actually try to be a legitimate part of a discussion.
That's something that we've been battling, as you know, Doctor, for a long time. This is what I'm calling the thick end of the wedge of the BDS argument that we've been having with UC Berkeley, with UPenn, with NYU. Winston Strawn should be congratulated for the decisive action that they took. They withdrew the offer to have that person from NYU come as an associate at their firm, and that's part and parcel. As yes, one thing, if there is a good side to that from the outside, we're starting to see realistically who are the neo-Nazis in our midst, those people that quite openly accept that Jews don't count. I'd like to bring in Danny Reisner at this point. I know he's not on screen at the moment to comment in relation to this, if it's available.
Thank you. Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I hope you can see me. First of all, hello everyone, and I would usually say it's good to see all of you, but given the circumstances, I wish we were meeting and that's a different explanation. To follow on what Roy just explained, I want to talk a bit about the challenges that we are going to face on the various arenas. First and foremost, we have the military challenge. We need to win this war. And while I personally do not believe that there is any other possible outcome that we will win this war for a variety of reasons, capabilities, perseverance, and to quote President Biden yesterday when he told the story that Golda Meir told them we have a secret weapon, we have nowhere else to go. So while we do have potentially other countries which were willing to accept us, we have nowhere else to go. So with that in mind, I think we'll win the war. I just don't know what price. That is the military challenge. We have the political challenge, because this war came upon the most divided Israel of all time. and Israel, where about 50% of the population doesn't accept the government and think the government that isn't working in the best interest of the country. Now, we've all put aside these differences to fight alongside one another, and my wife just came back from another funeral of another soldier, of son of a friend. The funerals today, many of them were delayed because there aren't enough funeral teams in the IDF for all the funerals we needed to have today. So they had to stage them throughout the evening. So that battle is still waiting us when this war ends. And that battle will be made even more complicated by the fact that when this war ends, there is going to be an incredible amount of anger at everyone and anyone who is responsible for this catastrophic failure. So we have a lot of battles in front of us. One small ray of light is that the coalition government has just been announced. So this happened about 40 minutes ago, or 30 minutes ago, and Gantz has joined the government, and Lapid, they've left the chair open for him in the cabinet. So apparently they've agreed on the conditions for sitting together at this time. This is the truth. This is not a peace treaty between Gantz, Lapid, and Netanyahu. The war will break out again the moment this war ends. But of course, now there will be additional ammunition because it was on Netanyahu's watch that the greatest failure of the Israeli military in history ever took place. And Mr. Security will have a lot to answer for. That is what I believe. Now, the next challenge we have is, and this is what Roy alluded to, is that the feeling amongst Israeli politicians, military officers, and the public is that in order to prevent this from ever happening again, we actually need to defeat Hamas now. Something we have intentionally not done for the last 20, 30 years. We actually need to destroy them. And in order to destroy Hamas, we will have to do things that we wouldn't have done before. Fueled by the energies of the pictures of what happened in the south of Israel, Israelis are now not only angry, Israelis are now determined to bring an end to Hamas. The only problem is that the end to Hamas, if it can even be achieved, will come at incredible cost, primarily for the Palestinians. And that cost to the Palestinians will be used against Israel in the court of public opinion and in the court of international law. And we can already see it happening when Biden is giving a speech about the fact that we stand by Israel. Many people are saying, wait a minute, there are already almost 1,000 Palestinians dead and thousands injured in the Israeli air attacks. The Israelis are also committing war crimes. Now, I want to say something really blunt. I think for the first time ever, we don't care. We don't care. I mean, we will do our utmost to preserve the rule of law, to attack legitimate targets, but I think this is the first time that we don't care what people will say. Because I think we're going to do what we need to do, irrespective of what the rest of the world thinks, because it's our lives, not theirs. That is a feeling amongst the Israeli people, the Israeli military, and the Israeli political level. And the fact that the US president went on record and actually yesterday, all Israelis understood what he was saying. He said, go ahead. We've got your back. Means that there's understanding with the US that something of that nature has to happen, because here I will disagree with my very long-time friend, Roy. This was worse than 9/11. 9/11 only killed 3,000 people, and I'm not belittling 9/11 in any way. Yeah, on Saturday, we lost over 1,000 people and another 1,500 injured in a country with a population of 9.5 million. At the time of 9/11, the US, I think, was 280 million. The percentage of the population killed on Saturday was 25 times more than 9/11. So in that respect, the Israeli response, and again, I'll quote President Biden, has to be swift, unwavering, and extraordinarily strong. And this is going to be a huge challenge for you, for us, for anyone in the legal profession, because normal people around the world will then say, we all agree, the normal people, everything that Hamas did was a war crime, and they should be, they should suffer the consequences. But your response is also illegitimate, irresponsible, disproportionate. And we will have to explain the only way to root out this evil is to kill it. No other mechanism, no UN Security Council resolution, no strong condemnation, no embargo, no sanctions can stop people who are willing to die. Remember, 1,500 Hamas bodies have been found, I believe that's the number I heard recently, in Israeli territory to date. All of them were suicide attackers. They all knew they would die. When faced with such enemies, playing by the usual rules is extremely difficult. I'm not saying we're throwing the rule book away. On the contrary, we're still abiding by it. But if we are going to achieve the goal of destroying Hamas, and I don't know what the government will do, because it's not an easy goal, especially if the northern front opens up, the results on the ground will be catastrophic for the Palestinians. Catastrophic. And this is going to be, in Roy's and my world, I think, our biggest challenge, to try and see if we can mitigate that situation. So to summarize, first of all, I am extremely sad to have witnessed everything which happened over the last 4 or 5 days. Every house in Israel has been touched, when the total number of casualties exceeds 4,000 out of a country of 9.5 million. You can't not know anyone. We've lost 3 people from our office. Roy and I work in the same law firm in Tel Aviv. So 3 family members of lawyers in the firm have died over the last 4 days. We have, at this specific point, 67 lawyers enlisted in combat duty or various duties. So this is very personal. This is not something we're talking about from afar. And so your support, your understanding, and your assistance will be crucial in the coming days, because we will have a lot of fights to fight together, to explain, to justify, and to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a quick question. I've got a quick question before we go to Rhonda. Fatah have remained conspicuously silent over the last few days. Do we know what they knew beforehand, and are they realistically expecting Israel to remove their main enemy, Hamas, and deliver Gaza to them on a platter?
Roy, do you want to try and take the one? You take the easy questions. I'll take the difficult ones.
I don't know. I really don't know what they have in mind. I think everyone in the region was surprised. Not only Israel, but I think everyone in the region was surprised by the success. I would say, quotes, right? The horrible success of this terrorist attack. So no one, some of the actors are developing their strategies as, on the fly. So it's for me, it's very, it is difficult to assess what I think strategically this is a significant blow to the entire Palestinian people. You know, in the world, the ability of most people in the world to distinguish between this is Hamas, this is Fatah, this is not, they do not represent the Palestinians, they do represent, I think, you know, that's, you know, I think the fact that Palestinian people committed such horrific atrocities is a significant blow also to the Palestinian Authority. And you see some of the reactions of some of the countries stopping their to the Palestinian Authority as a response. So it's difficult to judge how this will emerge, and also how the Palestinian people will react to the Palestinian people in the West Bank, how they will react to these Hamas action. You know, we should all anticipate that at some point Abu Mazen will not be with us anymore. He's not young. He's not very healthy, and there is a question what's going to happen in the West Bank after he passes, and you know, that's a question of internal also Palestinian politics. I think it's early to assess how all of this will.
Roy, I have to leave. We have a siren here.
Mm-hmm. Keep safe, Daniel.
Keep safe.
The one thing I just wanted to, you know, to make sure that it's not, you know, I just feel that you can't have this conversation without also mentioning is, of course, the Israeli civilians and soldiers that were kidnapped and are held hostage in the Gaza Strip. I think this is an area actually where Jewish people around the world have a lot to do. I think here political pressure over all actors is very significant. I'm involved. I've been asked to assist in various efforts in this respect. And here I think that, you know, all pressure on UN, Red Cross, Qatar, Saudis, Egypt, US government. I mean, this is certainly something that it is such an atrocity. I mean, they're holding babies and young children without their parents. Who kidnaps young children? Who kidnaps an elderly woman, 85 years old? They have no access to medication. They have no access to, you know, no one knows what their fate is. Some of them are in desperate need for medical attention. They're not getting the kind of medical attention that they need. Some were wounded. It's just, you know, it's just, again, it shows us, you know, what kind of people these Hamas is. But I think there, it is something that the international community as a whole, but I think every decent person should take some action to express the horror. And there it's still something that can be done, right? We do want to save these people, or as many of these people as we can. And you know, each one of you with the contacts that you have within law firms, within, you know, people, there are firms that represent some of these governments. There are people, you know, they have friends there. There are people that, you know, have contacts also within U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate. And I just think that, or just to write to the ICRC and to the UN, I think that is something that is very important. And of course, the support to the families and generally to the people of Israel. I mean, the destruction in the Gaza, it will take years to rebuild some of these towns in the south of Israel, assuming that the people will be willing to go back to their homes. I mean, Daniel mentioned this crisis of trust between the people that live, in these areas and the government and the IDF. I mean, these people, it was a responsibility of the government and of the IDF that something like that will not happen. People live there with with that trust, and now, that trust has been broken, and it will not be easy to recover that trust.
Rob? Okay, so I'm going to take some executive license. I'm Rhonda Lees. I am one of the VPs at the AAJLJ. I want to thank everybody again for being here. I wanted to do a couple of things quickly. Number one is some questions have come to me. We will be asking them of you. Again, my name is Rhonda Lees. So if you have a question that has not been answered, please send to me. I'd like to also ask Jennifer Scher from the FIDF, if that's okay, just to talk a little bit about what they've been doing, and also look at your chat because I'm going to put some contact information in there. Otherwise, Jennifer, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Jennifer Scher. I'm the Vice President for the Mid-Atlantic region for Friends of the IDF. I wish I were coming to you in better circumstances. I apologize. Xander, please take it off the stairs. It was all quiet until my son came home. We are getting requests from the IDF in real time. So I want to just put some things very quickly into a framing. And I've got a lot of information in front of me, and due to the unique circumstances, I also have my notes in front of me, so bear with me. I've been a Jewish professional for almost 20 years, and this is, obviously I've never experienced anything like this, certainly in my career. On a moment-to-moment basis, the FIDF team is in direct contact with our partners in the IDF. We're assessing urgent needs. We are the sole organization designated to accept funds on behalf of IDF soldiers. You are hearing a lot of things from a lot of different places. One of which you're seeing a lot of appeals on Facebook for GoFundMe pages and different things. Please, please, please. We do know that Hamas has taken cell phones of kidnapped Israelis, has set up GoFundMe pages. Please do not trust them. If it is not an official designated link from a true Jewish agency that you can follow the dollars, please, please, please. I'm not just making this appeal on behalf of IDF. On behalf of Friends of the IDF, I really want you to know I am at the table having conversations with federations. I'm on the table having conversations with the Jewish Community Relations Councils in each of our communities. I cover everything. I cover Pittsburgh down to North Carolina, just to give you a scope. I am based in DC. I know many of you are in DC. I don't know where everyone is posted. I am including specific information. If somebody could please post from the host group on my behalf, information for giving through donor advised funds and foundations. We have designated emergency campaign money. The requests that we are getting are very specific. We are standing up field medical hospitals. They've requested 27 operational ambulances, which means they're bulletproof ambulances. The ambulances are $175,000 each. It totals over $4 million worth of requests just on the operational ambulances. It's $76,000 just to stand up a field hospital. We're doing blood bank, any request that the IDF is giving us, we are turning around and getting it into the right hands. Excuse me.
We have a siren here, so I'm leaving you for a few minutes.
I understand. Please be safe.
Be safe. Okay.
FIDF estimates we are going to need to raise an estimated $50 million in order to reach the humanitarian needs and support of all of the IDF soldiers. This is not at all limited to what's going to be needed globally for the entire state of Israel. We focus specifically on what are the needs of IDF soldiers, and that will include, when this comes, as we look down the road, it will also include PTSD needs and all kinds of humanitarian support after. Right now, we're in as of yesterday, we transferred $3.1 million over to the IDF, which has included money for emergency plasma banking and set up, hygiene kits, clothing, towels, snack packages, well-being areas for reservists and gathering areas, transfer needs for wounded soldiers, and transfer needs for bereaved families of fallen soldiers. Everything is getting sent over immediately. We are calling on all FIDF donors throughout the community and our partners to do anything and everything they can to help. We're asking those who are already donors to double their giving. If you are interested, even if you are not in my region, I will connect you with the right place to hold an emergency parlor meeting, either in your office or in your home. We ask that you share as much of the information. After this, I will share easy forward information with Rhonda. I also want to thank Joel Taubman, who helped connect me here today. I can answer a few questions. I'm happy to do so. We are running 2 different WhatsApp groups, one of which is just an update, FIDF news and updates that anyone can join, but nothing is being posted on social media. You have to be privately invited to the group. That keeps us secure. I also have a separate group isolated for lone soldier parents. One of the things that we receive directly from the IDF is I have a list of every single lone soldier family in the communities I serve. Every FIDF chapter, there are 26 chapters across the United States. Every chapter has a list of who their lone soldier parents are. And we are doing everything we can to care for their needs, whether it's news updates, Zooms, dinners, packages delivered. I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning to a beautiful photo of 2 of our local lone soldiers from Northern Virginia, who I have both known since they were toddlers. They happen to be in the same unit. They took a selfie and sent it to their mothers, who then quickly forwarded the selfie to me. Anytime they reply that they're okay, that's all it's the best text in the world when you get a text from a lone soldier that we're doing okay, we're here. There's an endless amounts of news and endless amounts of information that you are going to receive and that you are going to be able to share. Please pay attention to where it's coming from. Please pay attention to the sources. And if you have any questions, I'm absolutely here. And I want to deeply thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you're doing as voices out in the community, as supporters, and as donors. And it is incredibly critical at this time. I will forward all the information on to Rhonda, who can distribute it as is appropriate. And if you have any questions, all of my information is available.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for, I put a little bit of information into the chat, and otherwise, everybody, you will get this by email afterwards. I'm placing my email information in the chat. If for some reason, and remember, you didn't get me, you are not on our list, you should be, so welcome. Okay. Daniel, are you back?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
I'm back too.
You both are. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. We have some problematic questions, and let me see if I can jump into it and ask you. We have a little bit of time. We can go to like 1:15, so I just want folks to know that. So we're trying to get a sense in terms of, obviously there's a lot of hopelessness here. We can give money, we can, pressure our officials to make sure that they come back home. Can you talk a little bit about the international law aspect of what Israel has every right to and is about to do?
So this is an area where combined Roy and I think we have about 55 or 60 years of experience. So I hope we can both answer this question. I'll start, and I suggest we let Roy continue. There are 2 different questions which arise in such a situation. A, do you have a justification to use force? And on this, answer is simple. The principle of self-defense gives you the right to respond with force to an armed attack. In this specific case, Israel justifiably saw the scope of the attack as triggering a full war and not just a response. And all of that is in strict compliance with the rules of international law of how you transition from non-warfare to warfare. I don't think there will be any question by anyone with respect to the justification, except for the really hardcore, pro-Islamic jihad. We don't care about international law group, but the people with who speak anything like our language will understand the justification to respond. The next question, however, is okay, when you do respond, what are you allowed to do? And perhaps more importantly, what are you not allowed to do? And the first rule, which is important that everyone understands, is that if one side breaks the rules of law, you're not allowed to break them yourself in retaliation. That is generally not a rule which exists. In other words, if they decapitate children, you can't decapitate children back. Not that we would ever want to, but I just want to make clear what the law, international law, allows and doesn't allow. Which means that in our response, because we believe that we have to be governed by the rules, are limited to attacking only military targets, are limiting only to attacking when there is a military objective and there is military utility in the attack. We are required to apply the principle of proportionality, which means that you can't target a target if there is an disproportionate amount of collateral damage anticipated as a result of the attack. There are a group of rules we will have to apply in our response. However, as Roy and I know from personal experience, these rules are, for lack of a better word, they are ambiguous and flexible. What is proportionate for one may not be proportionate for another. And as a result of that, I am quite confident that there will be people, including good people, who will say that the Israeli response will not be in conformity with these rules of the laws of how you wage war. Roy, can you continue from here?
Actually, Roy, before you do, let me just throw something else out. Is it my phone that's okay? It's better. What about the concept of, what happened was genocide, and Israel's response is genocide prevention?
Roy, easy question again. Yeah, no. So I will say two things. One, to add on what Daniel said. I think it is important, and I saw there are also international law experts on this Zoom meeting or webinar. Unlike some of the previous conflicts in Gaza, I understand that the IDF is facing operational challenges that it has not faced before. And in many ways, the previous hostilities in Gaza, we were fighting them in kind of luxury conditions, right? With for example, with the ability to use drones before every single strike. At the moment, in terms of, for example, our drones capacity, so we need to use some of these drones to actually locate the terrorists that are still within the Israeli territory. We need some of them for the northern front, and so the availability, for example, of drones for each and every attack they're not always available, and this obviously is something that may affect the consequences of some of these attacks. We need to handle munition carefully because of that very serious escalation in the amount of missiles that have been shot at us, and the possibility that we will need some of these sophisticated ammunition for what seems to be not an unlikely deterioration in the north. So, we can't always use the precise ammunition that we would have perhaps been able to use in the past for all attacks in Gaza as we did before. Also, some of the capabilities to issue specific warnings that we had in the past may no longer be available. So, so some of the things that were feasible perhaps in previous conflicts are not feasible in this one, and this may of course have an impact also in terms of the result. These are not violations of the laws of armed conflict. This is implementation of the laws of armed conflict to a very to a very difficult situation. In terms of genocide, I mean, I think it is an important question that one can raise, whether one can qualify these terrorist attacks that certainly qualify as crimes against humanity and war crimes also as genocide or genocidal acts. I don't think in terms of the laws of war that necessarily the fact that you are qualify these as genocide gives you additional rights in the conduct of the hostilities. This is kind of a different body of law. It may give you a stronger kind of moral justification, but it's not. I think you don't need additional moral justifications to be fighting such evil. So I think it's not an unimportant question. I think it will be asked. So far I haven't heard the official Israeli government officially describing this as genocide or attempted genocide, or and not a similar comment from the US. But I'm aware that there is a legal question that is a fair legal question, and it certainly might be argued, right, that what makes genocide different is the intention to annihilate a people, right? And if you look at what the kind of activity, right, the kind of things that happened, right, they just complete massacre of any person just because these are Israelis or Jewish people. It does give you the sense that the intention of those that were acting is actually to go after the Jewish people, right? To go after the Israeli people, and that can be a strong argument in favor of characterizing
Of doing it
as genocide.
We have about another 10 minutes, so. And I apologize if you already did this, but I didn't hear it in a way that, I need 1, 2, 3. Can you talk a little bit about the international human rights laws of war regarding a siege of Gaza? In other words, we've received some questions, people saying, why are they turning off all the electricity? Well, they're exerting pressure. Has that particular issue come up? Is it the same answer, which of course is totally justified? Okay. I will mute myself. Daniel,
Roy?
you're unmuted.
I was offering this to Roy, but Roy, your call.
No problem. There are rules in international law regarding siege. One should note the situation between Israel and Gaza is very unusual in the sense that when you occupy a territory, right, you have responsibility for the people. Right? When you don't occupy the territory, you don't have responsibility for the people. Right? The United States doesn't have an obligation to provide electricity or water to Mexico or to Canada. It can do that on a friendly basis, but it doesn't have to do that. And the complexity when it comes to the Gaza Strip is that some of this infrastructure, right, Israel has been providing throughout the years a very limited amount of water supply from through the Erez crossing and some electricity through electricity lines, and there is a question, right? There is something in some ways contradictory to logic. Why do you need to supply to supply this to the enemy, right? The laws of war don't say that you have to supply anything to your enemy. The laws of war do have provisions about allowing international humanitarian groups or neutral states, if they want to provide some humanitarian assistance, you should make it available. It's not that you have to. There will be those that will argue, but you can't cut. You have provided the Palestinians for so many years. Now suddenly you just stop that, right? It's harmful to the civilian population. One should know there are alternative water resources also within the Gaza Strip. They're not of the best quality, but they exist, and there is some electricity. Electricity itself is being used for some of the military efforts by Hamas. So it's not so it's more complicated than just saying, oh, that's imposing. There is no justification, no military need for that. Having said that, it's not a simple, from a legal standpoint, it's not a simple an easy step. And in the past, Israel on a few occasions decided not to take this measure. In the circumstances of this conflict, I guess the decision was to do that. We'll see.
Roy, can I add?
Yeah.
Can I add a few words?
Of course.
The question was, first of all, is it legal to impose a siege? So the assumption here of the person asking the question, I assume, is it legal for Israel to stop supplying those essential utilities which it has been supplying? But a siege has additional elements to it. And I want to remind all of us that Gaza has on one side Israel, on the other side Egypt, and on another side the Mediterranean. So Israel does not surround Gaza. One of the arguments which were raised in the past is that Israel continues to occupy Gaza. And this was based on the fact that Israel has, in the eyes of those people raising those claims, effective control over Gaza. When I disagreed with this position, and there's no right answer to this, it's a difference of opinion, I said there are two valid reasons why I think this argument cannot stand. One is because Israel only controls half of the border of Gaza, or 2/3, depending on how you count, because the other part is Egypt. And the second is, if we had effective control, Israel could enter Gaza unopposed, because that is the legal definition of effective control. And I don't need to explain to this audience what needs to happen for an Israeli to enter Gaza willingly. So the situation is currently that Israel doesn't occupy Gaza, in my opinion. But furthermore, under the laws of war, there are rules which allow you to apply economic sanctions on your enemies. Now, I didn't make this up. As all of you are Americans, you will appreciate that the US actually has been the leader in the world in imposing sanctions against enemies and countries we don't like, and in fact has the largest sanctions program in the world, including, I think, 8 or almost total embargoes on countries around the world, one of them being Iran, thanks. So the idea that you can impose limitations on a territory, even in peacetime, is totally legitimate. In wartime, it is 100% legitimate. What Roy is referring to is the fact that in Gaza Strip, it is quite clear that if we deny them basic utilities, it will have, in the short or long term, obvious consequences for the civilian population. Now, to this is the quandary to which we have no good answer, but I have one comment. Hamas knew that we are the primary supplier of electricity and water when they launched this attack on Saturday. So in that respect, it's not that they didn't understand what the consequences could be. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you. Whoever that Zoom is, okay. we have gotten a lot of questions. A lot of them were in the similar vein. I was wondering if each of our speakers, one quick thing. There was a question as to whether the aim of this war is to get rid of Hamas, and the means are proportionate to that. Couldn't you use the Hamas charter to show their genocidal intent?
Whoever is the host, you can mute everyone, which will be useful.
Doing it now. Apologies. Okay.
Could I have
Roy, do you want to answer that question about the Hamas Charter? Or?
I think realistically, of course, the Hamas Charter is an important document, important evidence. I think realistically, if one wants to pursue a genocide case with respect to these specific the terrorist attacks, you will need to show more than just the charter. And maybe for us it's sufficient, but I think that for a court of law, there will need to be something about the actions themselves, and I think there may be. So I think that it's not impossible to think of what has happened in the sense of genocide. Genocide it was defined by the international tribunals. That's not it needs to target a group, but it doesn't necessarily need to be successful in the sense like maybe the Holocaust, right? In terms of size, it's enough that the intention is to target a group based on its characteristic, like nationality, and there are certainly elements that could favor that kind of determination. But I think we should wait formal assessment by the Israeli, the U.S. government in this respect. Yeah, I think on genocide, that's where I am, at least at the moment.
All right. I want to thank everybody for being here. Daniel and Roy, would you like an additional 30 seconds, and then I will wrap it up.
Just to say thank you to everyone. I'm really encouraged by the large number of people that attended. It is very important to us. I can say that, as someone that was a government official for until fairly recently, until a year ago, it's not easy always to stand on the sidelines and see what is happening. But I did learn that you can do a lot actually also from outside of the government. And obviously, if you have ideas or you want to discuss or things, you all have my contact details at Herzog, and feel free to correspond or share any thoughts or ideas that you have. Thank you very much.
And I'm happy to serve as a conduit for that too. Okay, Daniel.
And I will add the following. When I heard President Biden's speech yesterday, it re-emphasized the fact that at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, the only country in the world which has consistently stood by the side of Israel over the years has been the United States. And in spite of the political differences between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Biden, which I know quite intimately because like Roy, I served with this Prime Minister for about 15 years. When these things happen, the US stands next to Israel. And that is, to be fair, the cornerstone of our national security. And President Biden's speech yesterday gave many Israelis hope, which they did not have for the last 3 days. So I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for your support. And we have a strong country and we will survive this, but it's going to be an experience we will never forget. And with your support, we will come out at the end of this stronger.
Thank you. Rob, before I
The only thing I can say is our prayers, our thoughts, our time is with you. Phones are on day and night, even Shabbatot. We're here for you, and whatever you need.
So I want to, I'm Ron again, AAJLJ Vice President. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Special thanks to, again, Roy for the pivot, Daniel for joining, Rob for moderating, Jennifer for joining us. I placed my email in the chat a couple of times. Please feel free to, you do need the M. It's please, Rhonda M. It's backwards, but it's all in there. And we will be in touch with you. We were at 118 people, which is a lot. And I think we all understand the issues a little bit better. Prayers and thoughts are with you, but we will also keep the pressure on to get the hostages home and for the public opinion to remember what they did and what Israel's up against. So on that note, I hope everyone is safe and healthy and happy, and please keep in touch. Take care. This concludes it.